Oh!
Damn it, boy.
What's up, everybody? Back at it again with another debate discussion video. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Honda Street Garage. Get your keyboards ready because this one's going to be a debate for sure. So let's get into it. So my name is Mark from Honda Street Garage, and if you're not familiar, I have an EJ1 with a K swap, which I'll show you now. So I have a K20A2 swap out of an 02 Acura RSX with matching transmission. It does have a Lighten 10-pound flywheel, stage 1 clutch, insane shafts, axles, Passport mounts. I'm also at the moment currently running a JDM K20A Type R ECU because it does not require the immobilizer, and it runs this engine pretty good. It only runs a check engine light for not having a secondary O2 sensor. Runs pretty strong, and in a previous video I did a review and I did a lot of pulls in it. Go check that video out if you want to see how this thing runs. And of course I have many other videos on the buildup of this. The engine bay went from pink to blue, and the whole process is in my video list. This is my 80th video for the year. Yes, you read the thumbnail right. H2B versus K series versus J series. I get the H2B question a lot. Why haven't I done one? When am I gonna do one? Is it better than a K series? Is it really a K killer? And I'm just basically gonna go over the debate of what is up with H2B swaps and should you do one, pros and cons versus a K series. Of course, there's plenty of videos out there where you see people racing H2B setups versus K20s, but you know, pound for pound, it's really hard to say which one's gonna give you the faster car because there's so many different variables between transmissions, tune, drivers as well. But what I'm going to do is go over why the H2B swap might be right for you, or it may not be right for you at all. First thing that comes up with the H2B swap is always, is it more cost effective? It seems like a viable option to get that K series type of power at a much cheaper budget. However, looking up the cost of what it would cost you to do an H2B setup, it's not really the case. I think that's a big misconception out there as far as the H2B swap goes. I'm going to be using H Motors as a price point reference. H Motors online has great engines and transmissions. I've bought from them before. The quality is bar none. They are a bit on the more expensive side as far as engines and transmissions and swap parts go. Some things they sell quite cheap, but their quality is bar none. Definitely get a great product for what you pay for as opposed to other companies. H Motors, for example, guarantees all the sensors intact. They usually remove the TPS sensor and map sensors, tuck them away in shipping so that it ensures that they make it there safely. You can get a cheaper engine from another importer, but it may not be as in good condition. They definitely have A+ quality. With that being said, I'm using them as a price point, and I priced out an H22 at roughly about $1,699, $1,700 for an H22 Euro R engine. And then of course, if you're going with the B series transmission, generally speaking, the B16 S4C is the one to go with, or maybe even an Integra Type R transmission is the one to go with because the gearing is so short. Those will run you roughly anywhere from $800 to $1,300 depending if you get an LSD or not. Also, one of the biggest misconceptions about the H2B swap is that if you're putting the B series transmission on the H series engine, it's definitely going to give you much better gearing, and that is true, it does. However, the whole original point for doing an H2B swap is more about getting the axles in the proper position, as well as dealing with the rod shift linkage, not having to swap over to a cable shift linkage. That's one of the benefits. However, personally, if I were going to do an H2B swap, I would probably go with a GSR transmission or a Type R transmission because B16 transmissions have kind of a weaker diff. They have the same differential as an LS, and even with an LS engine, I have broken many diffs at the drag strip years ago when I used to go drag race. So with that being said, if it's the swap for you, take that into account. Now, if you're looking at, like I said, the engine will roughly go for about $1,700, and then a Type R transmission will go for about $1,300. Shipping on both of those will probably come to about $200 to wherever you're at. Clearly, that's well over $3,000, and then you have to get an H2B kit. An H2B H2B kit is going to run you roughly $500-$600, even all the way up to $1,000 depending on what it provides. I'm keeping in mind that I'm using a EK DC chassis. The Bro kit, I believe, costs around $650, and you have to take that into account as well for the cost of the kit. That puts you in the ballpark of $3,500, $4,500 for an H2B swap right off the bat, and that's not including axles, ECU, wiring, or any of the other factors that go into doing an engine swap. Now, can it be done, and can it be done effectively and cheaply? Yes, it can. There's people out there right now, I'm sure, saying, oh, well, my buddy will sell me an H22 for $300, and my other buddy's got a transmission on Craigslist I can buy for $300. All I really need is the kit and the mounts and all the other little stuff. Yes, it can be done. Just like a K series, just like a B series, sometimes you can get the hookup on prices, but as far as generally speaking, if you don't know anybody or don't really have any hookups and you're just buying everything that you need off the shelf, the H2B swap can be just as expensive as the K series. Now, I have a few friends that have done an H2B swap, and I asked both of them their opinions on what they thought of the H2B swap, and neither one of them recommended the swap for a couple of reasons. Some were fitment issues, other issues were finding a little detailed parts, and that's another issue that comes with doing an H2B swap. The H-Series community is pretty tight-lipped about how to get an H-swap in your car running right without any issues. Can it be done? Yes, it can. I would say an H2B swap is definitely more for the more experienced mechanic, if that makes any sense, or someone who's done a few engine swaps before. If this is your first engine swap, I probably wouldn't suggest doing an H2B, but then again, hey, if you want to take the challenge on that, then go right ahead if you think that you're up to it and you've done all your research. But like I said, H-Series information. And the other thing that I would say to expect about an H2B swap is that it takes more time to get everything just right. And that's one of the reasons that you haven't seen the H2B swap on the channel. No one that I know really wants to take on that endeavor, and let alone the fact that it takes a lot of time. And when making videos, you definitely want to be able to execute what you're doing and have a turnaround time so that you can produce the video, edit the video, and put the video out in a relative short amount of time. However, if you're looking to do a long-term project, if you have a couple months, 6 months, or a year, time is not an issue for you, then maybe the H2B swap is a good choice for you. Here comes the part of the argument where everybody's going to get on their keyboards. Is an H2B swap better than the K series swap? In my opinion, I probably wouldn't lean that way. I would probably lean more towards a K swap for a number of reasons. One of the main reasons is there's so much aftermarket support for the K swap, as far as parts to get what you need, tuning options for them, and it's also honestly easier to bolt in. One of the benefits of doing a K20 or K24 swap is that the engine is actually a little more narrow side to side, and because the intake manifold is toward the radiator support, you've got plenty of room to get to the rear mount and mount everything up. And if you need to service the engine, there's a lot more space to do that. The H series shares the same issues as some of the B series and D series setups, is that the intake manifold can sit so close to the firewall that it's really hard to get to the rear mount, and it's really hard to kind of deal with wiring and deal with little issues and things like that. That can just be a headache overall. But then again, that's not something that should stop you from doing the swap if you really want to. Pound for pound, cost for cost, honestly, there are cheaper H-series motors and F-series motor options, just like the K-series motor has much cheaper options that you could go with. You could go with a K20A base model engine, which only has about 160 horsepower, but a lot more torque. And the same goes for the K24. The great thing about going with the K24 is that you could always put on a K20 head later, and then maybe even a 6-speed. So if you look at it that way, is an H2B a better choice? The other factor to me that makes the K series far more attractive than the H2B is that you can have power steering, you can have AC. There's a lot of kits for that. Or if you want to go for the super clean, stripped down look, K-Tune makes parts for days. Can it get expensive? Of course it can. The K series, I think, has a lot more tuning potential and a lot more ease of use, so to speak. Another issue with some of the H and F motors is the FRM liners, and those can be an issue. A lot of people don't know what those are. If you don't know what those are, pause the video, go Google it real quick, and come back. Okay, so if you are aware of the issues with FRM liners, basically in a roundabout way, instead of rebuilding it, it's much easier to just go ahead and get you a fresh motor on the way. Other than that, drivability. I will say in my experience driving a H2B, it definitely has a lot of torque. In a straight line performance, the H2B is just as amazing, if not more amazing than the K series or a K20. A K24, K20 setup is a little better definitely than the H2B in my opinion. Straight line, it's great. Don't get me wrong. However, the day-to-day driving of a H2B can get a bit annoying and daunting, but hey, maybe it's just your race car. But if you plan on daily driving and you want some sort of amenities, the H2B can be kind of violent feeling, and it can kind of wear you out with the shorter gears and the amount of torque that you have on tap. One of the great things about the K20 is that because it has such a short ratio gearbox, kind of like a B16, there isn't tons of torque down low, but at the same time, the engine gets up and goes and moves the car without jerking and jolting you around to death. And that's one of the reasons why, a Civic with a D16 stock motor mounts in its stock form can be a very comfortable car to ride in. Now, you might not give a shit and want to race everybody up and down the street in a drag race, then H2B is a great choice. But I just wouldn't have the idea that it's going to cost you less money and that it's going to be a quick swap that you're going to be able to knock out in a weekend. Finding little parts that you need, specific bolts and other little things that you need to get the swap going 100% can be difficult to find. And overall, the H series community is nowhere near the K series community as far as information goes. The information is out there, but you definitely have to be dedicated and really do your research to be able to execute the swap 100%. I would love to do one, however, the opportunity has not come up so that I could do one. Would I do one on a personal car of mine? I don't think so. Mostly because the K series is such a great, fun option and it fits my personality really well. And I'm about to say the craziest thing that anyone has ever said. I personally don't really care for super torquey motors. I know that if one day I want to swap a K24 block in, I'll get a crazy return on that. I really enjoy the personality of the car. I like the way that the K20A2 revs. It revs up to 8,000, no problem, and you can shift gears pretty firmly, and the car doesn't jerk and spin all over the road. Where I live, I have a lot of mountain roads, so that's what I like to use the car for. Yes, I know I have CCWs and need to get some track style wheels, but I really enjoy taking curvy roads, not really going in a straight line. Street racing people, it's not really my thing. It's not really what I get enjoyment out of. I like a car to be comfortable. I like the car to be, somewhat civilized. Now, I've been in strictly raw race cars that really just blow your mind. But as far as, driving them every day, you wouldn't want to. So is the H2B swap for you? I don't know. That's for you to decide. And I'm sure there's many people right now that are attacking their keyboard with furiosity about how wrong I am on this subject. The H2B can be a K killer. So it brings me to the ultimate end of the argument when we talk about versus the J series. Now, a lot of people have mentioned I need to do a J series swap next on the channel, and actually we sort of have. Chris Rivera, who is a good friend who has a dark red, burgundy red EG hatch, right-hand drive. You've seen it on my Instagram if you follow me on Instagram, and it's actually a quite famous car that HJ uses for a lot of their promos. It's a beautiful car. It is J-swapped, and it also has a turbo kit. So the challenges for a J-swap could be just finding a manual transmission for it, and then of course everything else that goes along with it, axles and mounts. Now, one of the issues that the J series really has is cooling. You're definitely going to need to step up to a dual core radiator. Chris personally has the issue where his car doesn't have any issues around town, but when he's cruising on the highway for a while, the temperature begins to creep up. He also had to run all the wiring in the ECU. Now, with that is the fact that you also have to have the ECU to run it, and there really isn't that many companies or options for tuning, which is the next problem for a J series. The issue with the J series is that only AEM makes a tunable platform for the J series. However, the issue becomes wiring up the AEM system because they only make it for automatic harnesses because they're far more common. So if you have a manual harness, you might be in some trouble. I can tell you from being in a J-swapped car, it's an entirely different world. There's been all these different arguments between K-swap versus a J-swap, which one is quicker. And once again, it comes down to all those different variables. But pound for pound, of course, the J-series makes more power. However, the gearing is a lot longer. The K20, K24 setup, you know, with the right transmission. It's just one of those things that you really can't measure, honestly. And I'm sure on paper, the J-series seems like a really great, attractive option because less expensive and has a lot of power. You got to think about what swap is right for you. If you're looking for low cost and ease of swappability, being able to knock it out, I would definitely suggest going with a B series. If you want to step up to that next step, I would say go K series. But if you really want to be different and you know, have something that's really raw and has the potential to be faster than K series, H2B. But I think the biggest factor that people miss out on as far as doing an H series swap, what I would do is I would H swap a car, but before I did, I would put a much shorter final drive in the transmission, giving me the same type of gear ratios as a B series transmission. So go ahead and smash that like button or dislike button. Go ahead and make a comment. Would you like to go H2B? Would you like to go K series? Which one do you think is better? Ultimately, you got to decide if you're considering either swap, which one is right for you. Thanks guys for watching. Click the like button on this one if you liked it. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out and keep living your dreams.